Hi and welcome to This Week in Travel. I'm Michelle Robson, editor of Turning Left for Less. In this week's episode, there'll be no travel news like we normally have because, as you can see, I am not at home. I'm currently in Ras Al Khaimah, which is one of the Emirates that's about an hour from Dubai. So we'll be looking at my journey here on KLM, using your Virgin Atlantic points, which is how I paid for my journey, and also a little bit about Dubai. Hi, so I'm here in the KLM Crown lounge, which is relatively new, and the business class lounge in Amsterdam. It's actually pretty nice. There's a bar that I'm in that's upstairs, so it's a little bit quieter, and they have a decent selection of drinks, including cava, spirits, and a couple of white wine, red wine, and a rosé. There are other choices, but you have to pay for it. But most of the prices are around about 9 to 11 euros, so it's not crazy expensive. Downstairs there's a bar where it's all free, but it's the premium area upstairs. In the summer there's a nice terrace as well. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Virgin Atlantic redemption. So I've flown here on KLM on a Virgin Atlantic redemption on my way to Dubai. So I bought it all as one ticket and it cost 50,000 Virgin points. And on top of that I had to pay £331 in taxes and charges. Now on the way back I'm flying on Air France, and that cost the same amount of miles, but that was much cheaper in terms of the taxes and charges. That was only 140 odd pounds, probably due to the taxes in the UK being quite high, so it's quite a bit cheaper coming back. Virgin points are actually pretty useful, although they're not so great for short haul from the UK. There is Air France and KLM that do fly from regional airports, which can be quite handy, and then connecting on to long haul. There's some interesting partners that they have. Whether these remain after they've joined the SkyTeam Alliance remains to be seen, but according to their chief operating officer, there's no plans to immediately change anything. So you can choose from a selection of other airlines, including Singapore Airlines and Hawaiian and ANA. Now ANA are the Japanese airline, and they have some really good pricing on their redemptions. It's 95,000 points for business class return, and it's 120,000 for first class return. Now that's pretty good compared with some other pricing, and it's actually a great product. They've got new seats on their 777s, and they do fly those from London, but not on every flight. However, it's really hard to get the first class seats because they generally only release one, and Virgin also released the seats slightly after ANA released them to their own people. So actually it's pretty hard to get one, but if you can, it's great value. Taxes and charges are a little bit pricey, around about £700 I believe now, but if you can get it and you can afford the taxes and charges, it's a really great product. You can't buy that online. That is one of the issues I think with Virgin. Currently you can only really buy Virgin Atlantic and Delta online. Technically you should be able to buy Air France and KLM, but I struggled to do it and I had to phone up. But it at least shows you the availability and then the pricing, but you might have to phone up to complete the booking. The rest of the partners you have to book by phoning up, but generally I find there's not much of a queue and they're very helpful on Virgin Atlantic. So you can get Virgin points through a variety of means now. There's the Virgin Red app, which is really good for all the Virgin brands, and also there's Virgin Shopping, similar to the BA app or website, where you just click on a link through to your normal shop online. And there's also the credit card. There's two versions of it, a free and a paid one, and these are really good for getting Virgin points because they're a MasterCard, so it's taken everywhere, unlike the Amex ones, which obviously is a bit more hard to use in some places. You can also transfer American Express membership rewards over to Virgin as well, so that's another option. Personally, I think when they join SkyTeam, which is the 5th of March, they'll become a lot more useful because any status you have in Virgin will be transferred over to Air France KLM. So I'm currently silver with Virgin, so it means that then I'll have status with Air France KLM, which is always handy. So the flight over here was pretty good. We were delayed slightly, but that was down to the weather at Amsterdam. I went to the gate at around about boarding time, half an hour before, and it was completely deserted, and I walked straight on the flight. In fact, everyone was on board 15 minutes before departure and we were ready to go, which is pretty rare on British Airways from Terminal 5, so I was pretty impressed with it. The breakfast was quite nice. It was like a little box with some yogurt, some granola, some French toast, which was cold, which was a bit odd, and some fresh fruit that was okay. And the service was really friendly, so no complaints from me on KLM flying on a short haul flight. So I started telling you a little bit about my KLM flight, and I talked about the leg from London to Amsterdam from the lounge. So let's talk a little bit about the long haul segment. Overall, I really enjoyed KLM. I'd say it was good value for money in terms of what I spent on it in miles, which was 50,000 miles and about £335 in taxes and charges. That's because it was from the UK. Probably from Amsterdam, it might be a little bit cheaper. The aircraft was a modern Boeing 787-10, which is one of the latest ones, and this means that the seats were very modern. The only criticism I would probably have would be that there wasn't much storage space pre-takeoff. After takeoff, there was plenty of room to put things. It was in a 1-2-1 layout. It was a fairly standard business class reverse herringbone seat that we've all sat in before. I found it pretty comfortable for sleeping, even though they don't actually give you a mattress pad. I didn't really seem to notice that. And I managed to catch a couple of hours sleep after a very early morning start. The food wasn't amazing, but it was pretty good. You don't get a choice of starter, you get like a little selection which was all vegetarian. Some things were a little odd. There was a chickpea salad, which was basically a chickpea puree that was very thick and didn't really taste of a lot, but I quite enjoyed the char-grilled courgettes, and the nut salad was quite tasty. There was a choice of 3 mains, one being vegetarian, 1 fish and 1 beef. I went for the salmon, which was pretty good. It wasn't too overcooked, and I enjoyed it overall. And then for dessert, you get either cheese or a little selection of desserts, which I thought was quite a nice option, and I had that and enjoyed it. My main criticism would probably be the wine selection. It wasn't exactly what I would call fine wine by any stretch of the imagination. It was drinkable, but that's about as much as I could say. They did have a cocktail, a Negroni, which I thought was a nice touch, and also a dessert wine, which I quite enjoyed that, which you don't get on British Airways in business class. The second meal, bearing in mind it's only 6 hours from Amsterdam to Dubai, was a choice of little snacks. One was a bit like a sausage roll, but with beef. There were some cold vegetarian sandwiches or ice cream, and they came around once about an hour and a half before, and then they came around again if you wanted a second one. And I thought that was pretty good. The little sausage roll was hot. It was quite tasty. It came with a little sachet of mustard, and on that length of flight it was perfectly fine for me. They also came around with drinks again at that point. I really can't fault the service. The crew were really friendly, constantly offering top-ups if you wanted anything else. Absolutely no faults there at all, and it was very consistent the whole way through the flight. Other points to note is the entertainment was very good. The screen was large, it had great definition, and there was plenty of choice of things in English language. The headphones were quite comfortable. There was charging by a USB or by a port, a normal universal plug, so that was very easy as well. The seat was my only probably not a complaint, but I would have liked to have been able to control it individually, but all it had was presets like sort of relax, flat or upright. That was it. You could sort of stop it halfway, but it wasn't great. I could reach the footrest, which I'm 5'6", and I know sometimes I can't, but that one I could actually reach the footrest, and it was quite a large area when you were lying down. Sometimes those little foot cubbies can be a bit claustrophobic, but this was actually pretty good. So overall for KLM, it would be a thumbs up from me. I would fly them again. I wouldn't say it was like the best business class I've ever had, but it was consistently good service. The food and wine was okay, and most importantly, the seat was comfortable, and I also enjoyed the entertainment. So airlines that you could use points and miles on other than Virgin Atlantic would be British Airways, Emirates and Qatar. Qatar flying to Dubai is quite a good bargain actually on a cash fare, because quite often flying from places like Oslo, for example, you can get a fare for around about £1,000 to £1,200. So it's worth always weighing up, is it worth actually paying using your Avios to fly, or is it worth just paying for it and earning some more Avios and some tier points potentially? Availability is normally not that great on British Airways because it is super popular. The only time it's normally better is during the summer months, because obviously it's extremely hot here. What you can do is use something like Seat Spy or Reward Flight Finder to set alerts, as often they are released much closer to the time if you didn't manage to get them at 355 days before when they are first released. In terms of arriving into Dubai, one of my top tips for saving money is to actually not go straight to your hotel that you're planning to stay at. So presumably you spent a bit of money on something very nice, like the Westin Mina Al Sahih, which I stayed in previously. And that can be, £250, £300 a night quite easily for one of the nice hotels in Dubai during peak season. So why spend that money if we were going to arrive at maybe midnight or even 3 a.m. as I did recently on a Qatar flight? To me, it's a bit of a waste of money because you're literally going to go to bed and not use any of the facilities on that night you've paid for. Or you could turn up and hope that they have a room available on early check-in. But let's face it, at peak season, that may not happen, and then you're left trying to kill time for hours when you're really tired. So what I recommend is staying at one of the airport hotels for the night. It can save a huge amount of money. I normally actually just stay at the Premier Inn. They have a shuttle that goes every 30 minutes. The rooms are perfectly adequate. There's a reasonably comfortable bed. They're quiet. They've got good air conditioning. The staff are really friendly. They'll give you late checkout if you book direct with them. I really recommend booking direct because they tend to give you more preference. And there's a decent breakfast if you want it. So I generally will go to sleep there and check out at about 1 o'clock if I can get late checkout. Then I head to my hotel. And the worst, by the time you've got to it, is probably you have an hour and a half to wait if the room's not ready. But at that point, you've had a nice sleep, you've had a shower. I normally get myself ready for the beach or pool and take my stuff with me so that if I can't get in the new hotel, I'm not wasting any time. So I haven't spent £300 to just be asleep. I've actually spent round about probably 65 for the Premier Inn. So I've saved quite a lot of money and not really inconvenienced myself, because a 5-minute journey to the Premier Inn is much more preferable than, half an hour to something on the Palm, for example, or even longer. So that's one of my top tips when you arrive. Getting around is very easy. Taxis tend to be cheaper than Ubers, which is obviously different to other places. They don't take cards though, most of them. Very few will take a card, so you do need to get cash. There is a cash point at the airport. There's one just as you're waiting in the luggage section, and there's also one once you've come through arrivals as well in the terminal that Qatar and KLM use. That's Terminal 1. My other tips for Dubai are looking at your cell phone carrier as to whether you can actually get data roaming at a reasonable price, because a lot of them don't cover the UAE. If you can't, then I recommend using something like Airalo, which is a mobile eSIM. Now, this is quite easy to do. You download the app and then you choose which country you're going to, and then it gives you instructions to install an eSIM, which most iPhones and modern phones allow you to do. And then basically you can set which SIM you want to use your roaming with, whether it's the Airalo one or your own one, and which one you want for voice calls. I normally have voice calls set to my own normal number because I tend not to use it. And then I have all the data roaming on the card. And I think I've paid around $20 US dollars for 3 gigabytes of data, which will do me probably for the full 10 days I'm here. Because obviously when you're in the hotel, you're just going to use the Wi-Fi, or you can obviously try and get on Wi-Fi wherever you are in the UAE. So next week I'll be looking at more at Ras Al Khaimah, what it has to offer, and the hotels that I've been staying in. So join me then, and until then, happy travels.